And now for something completely different. If you enjoyed the heavy Gen 2 usage in Unseen Forces, then you'll be surprised to find that we've got one of the coolest things that has ever existed in the entirety of the Pokemon TCG set-wise, and that is EX Delta Species. So, talking about the set, EX Delta Species released October 31st in 2005, and features 114 cards in the set, with one secret rare card, and features this awesome new mechanic called the Delta Species Pokemon. These Pokemon are different than their usual types imply, which makes for cards of Pokemon that you never thought to be possible before, such as the Steel and Grass type Beedrill. This is the 11th set released in the EX era, and because it's featuring a new reverse holo pattern, that means that I have to change out of these clothes. The reverse holo for this set is really clean. I love how the reverse holo rares look, and I am lucky to own a pretty decent condition of a Tyranitar reverse holo rare, which looks awesome, with the hollow borders, and the reverse only gets the Pokemon, which is a really cool touch. It just kinda outlines the Pokemon, which looks really nice. But yes, I can barely contain my excitement, so let's just move on to the trainers. Milky Sobe reprinted the Dark and Metal Energy. As always, Takumi Akabane worked on three cards, being the Holon Energy FF, GL, and WP, which represent the different types of Pokemon. So FF being Fire and Fighting, GL is Grass and Lightning, and WP is Water and Psychic, which is cool. It shows the energy pulsating around, along with some spotlights, which look pretty nice. Our next artist is Hiromichi Sugiyama, reprinting the Switch card. Shinichi Yoshikawa reprinted the Potion, and Keiji Kinabuchi reprinted the Master Ball, as well as the Super Scoop Up. Ken Sugimori worked on the Holland Scientist, which holds its hand out as a Voltorb floats nearby the scientist, looking at him. And that's the only Sugimori card in the whole set. Honestly, quite surprised, but this just means that the rest of the cards should be beautifully illustrated, right? Our next artist is Kaneko Io, working on the Holland Researcher, which writes down some notes on her little clipboard with a concerned Magnemite floating near her. This is a cute trainer card for Io, and is their second card that they've illustrated thus far. Nakaoka reprinted the Great Ball. Weirdly enough, we see a card reprinted from Big Mama Tagawa, which we haven't seen since Magma vs. Aqua, being the Dual Ball, which is the same reprint, again. Our next artist is Koki Saitou, working on the Holland Farmer, which shows the farmer tilling the ground below him to make it suitable for the crops, with a dark sky. The Holland Lass, which picks apples from a tree at the same dark sky, and the Holland Mentor, which stands with his cane with some buildings by the side, once again featuring that dark sky. Mitsuhiro worked on the Holland Transceiver, which looks pretty funny, as it shows a very Pokemon-like transceiver with just a regular man's outline, just kinda there. It feels a little out of place on a Pokemon card, to say the least. Our final trainers were done by Ryo Ueda, who worked on the Holland Research Tower, which gets struck by lightning as buildings are all around it, which I assume to be their research post, and then the Holland Ruins, which is a stadium, as you can just tell by the Pokeball in the middle, and there's some kind of evil ruins that sit in the background. And let me get out of here from this ladder. I think I'm getting a little tired of this bunker at the moment, and I just kind of want to see where I can go from here. Let's see. Oh my, the winds have certainly stepped it up. Is that lightning? It may be just a set too late for lightning. Well, whatever. No matter. It's fine. I'll figure it out. Where the heck am I, anyways? These look to be some kind of staircase in front of a temple. Ah, I'm just glad that I brought an umbrella. Hold on. Alright, now we can talk about the actual main cards in the set. We've got Kenkichi Toyama working on a single card for the set, being the cute little Ralts, as it holds onto a berry and smiles, and flowers and bushes are all around it, with a fence in the background. I like this card. It's simplistic and cute. I like the Ralts' little smile, and I just like the atmosphere of the card. It's very pleasing, with those thick outlines. Our next card is the Meowth, illustrated by Hiroki Fuchino, which looks awesome. I like how the perspective shifts around the Pokemon as it raises up its paw, and the floor mixes with the wall as it looks at the camera with a grin. For a second card, Fuchino made a fantastic second impression. Our next card was illustrated by Takao Uno, being the Holland's Voltorb, which showcases Voltorb looking to the left as it radiates energy, with a tower in the background that can be seen irradiating the same kind of energy. This card is quite a detailed Voltorb card, showing all the reflections and such, and showcases the quote-unquote Holland's Pokemon, which have special effects in battle. Now, we have Tomokazu Kokmiya, who worked on this cute little Zubat, which is cute and scary at the same time, as it opens its mouth and bares its fangs, and its wings flap. The Tailo, which extends a wing and looks to the right. The Sandshrew, which burrows up from the ground, sad with the blossoming flower on its head. And the Drowsy, which looks forward in the rain looking quite sad. Overall, these Kamiya cards showcase their innate ability to make us feel for the Pokemon that they illustrate, especially the sad Drowsy, or the concerned Sandshrew. After Kamiya, we have Naoyo Kimura, who worked on the Ponyta, which prances through a field with trees in the background, and the Persian, which looks directly at the camera menacingly with concrete and bricks laying on the ground. Too bad Kimura only worked on 2 cars in this set, but I still really like the Persian, personally. Next, we have Sachiko Adachi, who worked on the Poochyena, who opens up its mouth as it looks into the camera in a grassy field, the Makuhita, which pranced along a field of flowers, and the same flowers fall from the sky, the Coughing, which shoots out little puffs of gas with a research building in the back, and finally, the Kakuna, which perches up inside of a tree, as autumnal leaves fall on the ground, and the sky is also dark. Our next artist is Yuka, working on a whopping 10 cards for EX Delta Species, but all of these cards are Ditto, but they take the shape of many different Pokemon, starting with the first Ditto, which represents Squirtle, standing on some stones. The Pikachu Ditto stands on some stones looking upwards. The Geodude Ditto just holds up its arms and smiles. The Charmander, which flicks its tail and looks up. There's also another Squirtle, which stands on some pebbles with a leaf in front of it. The other Pikachu, which stands up and looks upwards. The Mr. Mime, which sits down and opens its mouth. The other Charmander, which is in almost the exact same pose as the other one, with a slightly different background. The Bulbasaur, which stands on some moss. And the actual Ditto, which raises its hands up near some moss as well. These cards are definitely unique. We haven't seen anything like them, and probably won't see anything like these anytime soon. Next, we have Yukiko Baba, who worked on the Cubone, which looks to the right, and it looks very suspicious, with bricks in the background. The Golbat, which opens its mouth wide open as rain falls in the background. And the Weezing, which float through a forest as they shoot gas all around. Our next artist is Kagemaru Himeno, who illustrated this awesome Slowpoke, which walks along a bridge as we can see it from behind. The Magnemite, which floats along the world as it floats down a pathway. The Magneton, which looks upwards as they float in a forest of tall trees. And finally, the Slowking, which look at the camera as it sits atop a brick wall. Really nice illustrations by Himeno, as always. And next, we have Miki Tanaka, who worked on all the cast forms, starting with the regular cast form, which smiles and stares at a flower during a nice day. The sunny cast form emphasizes the sun as it looks up at the bright blaring sun as it smiles. The snow cloud cast form smiles as it causes a snowstorm on top of a building and bush. And the rain cast form smiles as strangely it doesn't rain, but the cast form looks to the left and stays smiling, which is cute. Castform is the perfect Pokemon for somebody like Tanaka to work on, and I do like these cards. Next, we have Katsura Tabata, returning from EX Deoxys to give us 2 other Holland's Pokemon, being the Holland's Magnemite, which points out one of its magnets as lightning strikes all around it and forms an outline on the Pokemon, and the Holland's Magneton, which floats around a research facility as more lightning strikes around. Tabata continues to be a talented 3D artist who makes many nice artworks. Now, we have Hisao Nakamura, worked on the Staryu, which jumps through the sky as water spirals all around it. The Porygon floats with some kind of steam forming all around the Pokemon. Skarmory opens its wings outwards as lightning aggressively strikes down onto the ground. The Hariyama raises its fist above its head and leaves fall down from a tree. The Porygon 2 closes its eyes and sits calmly on top of a pond, floating around. And then finally, the Holland's Electrode, which kicks upwards with an upset look on its face, as some kinds of Holland buildings stand below it, which looks quite nice. Nakamura's artwork is always so bold, it sticks out well due to the deeper colors and shading, sometimes even using unique colors, such as with the Hariyama. Midori Harada is next, working on the cute Staryu, which floats in some water as it sits next to an arch that has water flowing through. The Marill, which sits on its side as it pushes its tail outwards. The Volbeat, which holds onto a leaf and smiles at the camera. The Curlia, which extends its arms as leaves fly all around. The Illumise, which fly through the air with a silly little smile on its face. The Starmie Delta species, which looks up with its jewel inside of a cave, being both a water and a steel type, which is cool for a first Delta species Pokemon, technically. And the Hypno, which sits on top of some stairs as it holds its pendulum and looks forwards. Also, the Azurill, which bounces along the water as it runs in the same type of area where the Staryu is in. Our next artist is Atsuko Nishida, who worked on this cute little beetle, which looks up as the sun reflects onto it, the Eevee, which stares forwards with a fluffy neck fur, the Rapidash, which looks forwards as flames bellow all around it, the Swallow, which looks to the left on a branch, and the Azumarill Delta species, which has a smile on its face and splashes around a deep sea, being both water and steel type. Alright, onto the staircase, and this thing is tall up, man. As I scale this, I'll talk about all these cards that feature Holo Pokemon, and we'll definitely be seeing a lot more Delta species Pokemon from here on out. And now, we have Hajime Kusajima, who worked on the Larvitar, which looks to the right as it jumps along, and being a fire type instead of a fighting type this time. The Dratini Delta, which looks to the left as the clouds push forwards, being the electric type. The Beldum, which floats along with some pillars in the background, also being electric. The Bagon, which looks to the left during a lightning storm, being a fire type. The Metang, which has this really cool realistic style, which is the same with the Beldum, as it goes through some technological area. the Dragonair Delta species, which flies through the skies at parts of the clouds, the Mightyena, which stances on a building, being a dark and a steel type, and the Marowak Hollow, which raises up its hand and faces towards the camera, has lines surrounded all over. This one is a fighting and a steel type, which is really cool. Kusajima's cards in this set are all fantastic, as there always are. And now, we've got Mitsuhiro Arita, worked on the Delta Eevee, which is a steel type, as it looks up and to the left and looks curious. The Dratini, which swims underneath a bridge and is also the electric type. The Shelgon, which walks in front of a fence, looking upset. This one is a fire type. The Dragonair is gorgeous, as it swims underneath the water looking forwards. The Sand/Slash Delta species, which looks to the right, being both a fighting and a steel type. And next is the Tyranitar Delta, which looks forwards as the backgrounds look to be a facility, and the Pokemon is fire and steel type. This card just looks majestic and menacing. And then finally, we have the Gardevoir Delta species, which just looks amazing as it walks up a staircase slowly. This one is a Psychic and Steel type, which is a really cool idea. I also like how methodical the card is with the Gardevoir prancing up the stairs slowly. And now we have Kouki Saitou, worked on the Vaporeon, which spews water out of its mouth. This one is both a water and a steel type, and I like how it dips its back feet into the water. And now we have the Jolteon Delta species, which jumps back as it looks at the camera, and electricity flows all around it. This one is electric and steel type. And finally, the Flareon, which skids along the ground, looking directly at the camera, as fire flies behind its tail. This one is a fire and steel type. These three cards by Saitou are all gorgeous, and I like how awesome they made the evolutions in this set. Now, we have Ryo Ueda, who worked on the Umbreon Hollow, which looks up as it stands on a roof, being a dark steel type. The Salamence Hollow, which flies along a pathway looking with an open mouth with clouds in the background, being fire steel. The Rayquaza Hollow, which looks menacing, as lightning strikes behind it with an open mouth with clouds in the background, being electric/steel type. The Mewtwo Delta species, which looks upwards as it readies its fist inside of some kind of sewer, being a fire/steel type. The Latios, which looks to the left as the research center is in the back, being electric and steel. The Espeon Delta species, which stands on top of the railings of a bridge, looking right, being a psychic steel type. The Latios Delta species, which moves forward on top of a bridge as its shadow is being cast below it. This one is an electric/steel type. The Dragonite, which flies up in the sky, looking at the camera, being an electric and steel type. And finally, the Crobat Hollow, which goes to the right near some architecture, looking upset. This one is one of the more unique types, being grass and steel. Ueda's cards were all Delta species Pokemon, and the idea is just so awesome. It makes the card so unique, and it's cool to think about Pokemon that aren't just their original types. Finally, for normal artists, we have Masakazu Fukuda, working on the Bagon, which runs along a pathway with an open mouth, looking enthusiastic. The Shelgon, which jumps along with a determined look on its face. The Pupitar, which looks down at a river, also being a fire type. And a different Starmie Delta, which floats along with water. The Metagross Delta, which stands in a field looking forwards, being electric and steel type. And finally, the Beedrill, which flies through the sky, pushing its arms backwards as it kicks, being the grass and steel type. Whoa, I'm sensing a sharp pain in my brain. Ack! Hey, I'm working on this device that'll put an end to the pesky meteor that's bound to strike the planet. I call it the Super Hyper Beam. Yes, I know that's not very creative, but sometimes you just gotta let it out and come up with something. We can brainstorm it later, but yes, this will destroy the meteor, releasing whatever is inside of it. We have documents saying that it may cause a catastrophic event to happen and release a Pokemon known as Deoxys. But it would be no match for me and my Rayquaza. But still, Agent 001 out. What? I didn't know about all that. What's going on inside this brain of mine? And what's happening to me? I can't contain my confusion. Am I bad or am I good? I wanted to save the Earth, but I was willing to obliterate Deoxys because of it. Does it make me a good person or not? Anyways, let's just move on to the EX cards, Secret Rare, and Gold Star cards. Starting us off, we've got the EX cards, and firstly, we have the Flareon EX, illustrated by Ryo Ueda, which poses in a spinning vortex of white and blue surrounding it, which make the Pokemon look very dynamic and kinda scary for a Flareon, or at least menacing. The Jolteon, illustrated by Mitsuhiro Arita, which looks forwards at the camera with a spiky mane and is surrounded by energy. This one looks oddly realistic, but I guess it makes sense for a Mitsuhiro Arita card. But finally, we have the Vaporeon EX by Hikaru Koike, which looks forwards and is surrounded by layers of black and white. Yep, only 3 EX cards for the set, but then again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Less can be more in some aspects. Next, we have the Secret Rare, being the Azumarill by Kagemaru Himeno, which is really pretty. I like how it smiles and looks back up, with its arms extended outwards. The green and white background complement the Pokemon nicely, and it's cool to see Himeno get a Secret Rare Pokemon, because I think they deserve it. And finally, we have the gold stars illustrated by Masakazu Fukuda, as always, being the Groudon Gold Star. And whether you like it or not, this Pokemon is extremely dynamic, as it pushes its claw forwards into the front and its feet stand center stage, mixed with that striking yellow. But now, the Kyogre Gold Star appears. This one looks quite a bit scarier than the Groudon, as it breaches up from the water with a ridiculously vibrant purpley pinkish hue. And finally, the Metagross Gold Star, which appears in its sprinting mode, with a deep blood red background, as it casts a shadow below it, with determined eyes. I actually personally like Metagross a lot, but this Gold Star is just a little bland by Gold Star standards, just not as dynamic as most of the other Gold Stars are. Probably just because of the way that Metagross moves, considering he actually does move like that. Anyways, that wraps up EX Delta Species, a fantastic set surrounded by a new gimmick, as well as being supported by Pokemon that deserve the title, like the Evolutions, Salamence, and Dragonite. My favorite cards in the set would probably be the Kyogre Gold Star, Vaporeon EX, Flareon EX, Beedrill, Espeon, Flareon, Gardevoir, Jolteon, Latios, Metagross, Rayquaza, Tyranitar, and Umbreon Hollows, as well as the Porygon 2, Weezing, Ditto number 40, both Dragonairs, number 41 and 42, the Kakuna, Metang, Persian, Skarmory, Bagon number 58, both Drutinis, number 65 and 66, Eevee number 68, Holland's Magnemite, Coughing, Marill, Meowth, Porygon, Sandshrew, and the Staryu, number 84. Overall, Delta Species is an amazing set. Let me know what your favorite card in the set is in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video, where I review EX Legend Maker. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe, as I'll be making more videos, and of course, not only will I be making the video on the next set, but I'll be reviewing everything Pokemon related, as well as just making a bunch of really interesting Pokemon related videos, specifically related to the artists. Thank you for watching again. Bye now.